Evening, everyone. I'd just like to formally welcome you all to the A4S Summit. Just as it says, John Rogers. I am the co-chair of the A4S CFO Leadership Network in my spare time. I'm also the CFO for Sainsburys PLC. I hope that as part of this summit, you will obviously have the opportunity to look around some of the great work I think that the network has been doing over the last couple of years, to talk to the teams that have really been engaged at the coalface in pulling all the stuff together. But I just wanted to spend 10 to 15 minutes or so just sharing with you some of the ways that Sainsbury's as a business thinks about sustainability and the way that we integrate our thinking on sustainability into the way that we manage and run our business. And it has been talked already about the role that finance can play in sustainability. And I stand here before many of my finance colleagues. It's not immediately intuitively obvious as to why should finance be leading the charge on sustainability. But actually, if you think about finance as a function, we are, after all, the holder of the purse strings. We do, generally speaking, allocate the capital across our businesses. And we are one of the few functions actually in business that tends to have a very broad reach across the business. In other words, we can touch all parts of the business. And I think from that perspective, I've always felt that finance is absolutely ideally placed to lead the charge on sustainability. Just stepping back a little bit though and just looking at the challenge that we face and some of the issues that are being discussed in detail, of course, at the summit that's currently going on in Paris. But we do face some quite big challenges. By 2030, it is projected that we will consume 50% more energy than we are consuming today. That we will be using 40% more water than we're using today, and that we will consume 35% more food globally than we are today. So these are some quite hefty challenges that we will face. We're not talking about in the next 50 years, we're talking about in the next 15 years. At the same time, of course, we need to ensure that we keep the rise in global temperatures to a maximum of 2% if we're genuinely to have a sustainable planet on which we all want to live going forward. So these are some massive challenges that we face, and it's clearly self-evident as to why governments are involved in trying to address these challenges. But I think it's also fair to say that we cannot solely rely, of course, on governments to deliver on some of these promises. And actually that business has a massive responsibility, I think, to equally lead the charge on the issues of sustainability. And if I think about the Sainsbury's business, hopefully many of you will shop in our stores. We are a UK retailer. We don't have operations stores overseas. We are focused first and foremost in the UK. But of course, we do have a massive global footprint as a business. We actually supply from over 70 countries. I think 72 at the last count. We have over 2,000 supplier locations spread around the world. We deal with tens of thousands of farmers. So sometimes it's very easy when you look at your business operations in isolation just to think about your physical assets in the UK and the impact that that has on sustainability. But actually we need to step back and really understand our entire global footprint. And it's not just, of course, the economic impact that that has, but also the issues of sustainability in terms of that global footprint and also the social impact as well in many cases as a business. And it's quite easy to sometimes underestimate those impacts, particularly, of course, when those value chains may, in our case, be thousands of miles away from our core operations in the UK. So the way we look at having a sustainable business plan is genuinely on a really sort of end-to-end value chain process. We can't just look in isolation at our retail operations. We genuinely have to start looking at the agricultural and land use, the food and drink manufacturing and processing, supply chain, and logistics, then the retail operations, then of course the consumers. So we have to try and look at the end-to-end process when we're thinking about issues of sustainability. And of course, when we're looking at that process, we're looking to try and establish cost savings, cost efficiencies, create value, and also actually in many cases make sure that we've actually got sustainability of supply as a business. And a really sort of live example of this in my mind is our coffee supply chain. So I don't know whether you know, but growing coffee is very sensitive to temperature and very much driven by altitude. And the challenge that we face with a rising global temperature, many of the current plantations, coffee plantations, actually are getting to a level of temperature where the yield on the crop is diminishing as a consequence of that too high a temperature. And so we need to look at actually elevating those plantations to higher altitudes, cooler temperatures, so that we can get the right yields up. But of course, many of these plantations are actually relatively small. They are family owned, they are passed on from generation to generation. They're not always big corporates. And of course, in many cases, they simply do not have the capital. I don't know, it takes 5 years, for example, to grow a coffee plant before it becomes productive. And so in many cases, these owners don't have the capital to invest to take their plantations and to elevate them to higher altitudes in order to get the right productivity. So we, as a business, have a responsibility to make sure that we are investing in those in that supply chain, because if we don't, it's not simply a matter of economics. It's actually a matter of, if we don't do this, we will not have security of supply over the next 10 years. And this is true not just of our coffee supply chain, but many of our global food supply chains. We literally have to think about how we do things differently, because if we don't, we won't have access to that supply going forwards. So when we think about our plan, it is focused around our 5 values. Each of these areas actually is led by a member of our operating board. So we have incredibly senior representation within our business driving our sustainability plan going forward. So whether it's living healthy lives and healthier baskets, and these are very hot topics at the moment. I mean, we've seen a lot recently about the sugar tax, about the healthiness of our soft drinks, for example. We talked about sourcing with integrity, so sustainable fish is a very hot topic at the moment. We've talked about sustainable sourcing already in terms of our coffee supply chains. Respect for our environment, this is the particular work stream that I take ownership for and lead within our business. And operational waste, I think Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall has certainly raised the agenda on waste in our industry. I actually think he's probably giving us a little bit of a hard time. I think we are doing some great work that I'll talk about. But these are very real issues. They're very relevant issues today. They're very much in the public domain. Also, actually making a positive difference in our community. And this is not just the communities of our stores, it's also the communities that exist within our supply chain. So again, we feel we have a responsibility to make sure that our farmers, both in the UK and abroad, are operating in a sustainable way for our business. And of course, making it a great place to work is another one of our key values as well. And actually, colleague engagement on our sustainability plan is absolutely pivotal. Without our colleague engagement, we would not be able to deliver our plan as it exists today. And of course, having a sustainability plan in and of itself and that as part of our core value, I think is increasingly becoming a recruitment tool for companies. Particularly amongst our graduate community, for example, many of our graduates cite the fact that because we have a reputation of having a sustainable business, that is one particular attraction as to why they would want to come and work for us. So sustainability in that context is also increasingly becoming more important. Now, you'll be pleased to hear I don't want to talk through each one of these areas in detail, but I do want to just to highlight just a couple of examples that I hope brings to life a little bit how we as a business are thinking through some of these issues. Okay, that's a farmer with some cows. And this is all about our dairy development network of farmers. So we actually work very extensively with a group of dairy farmers. we actually buy milk from those farmers on a cost of production plus a profit basis. Now, many of you will have heard the challenges of dairy farming in the UK at the moment, and this gives great comfort to our farmers that they can invest in their businesses in the knowledge that they have a guaranteed price for their milk and therefore can get the return on investment that's required. Now, one of the things that we ask for in return for that guaranteed price is the fact that these farmers, these groups collaborate together to share best practice. So on an anonymous basis, all those farmers submit their operational performance, they submit some of their sustainability metrics, and they themselves can see how they compare to their peers in terms of performance, upper quartile, lower quartile, and then we share best practice across that group. And in so doing, we've achieved significant operational savings and also moved that supply chain forward in terms of the sustainability metrics. So, for example, energy usage is one thing that we've managed to significantly reduce in the supply chain because of the sharing of best practice. So this is, clearly it's a win-win for us as a business. If we can take those costs out from our supply chain, that's clearly beneficial to those farmers, but it's equally beneficial to us as a business, and hence why we invest in this area. Here's another example. This is our Kenyan fair trade roses. Actually, fair trade is very important for us, of course, in terms of the work that it does to improve health, education, gender equality, as an example. But it's also working on the environmental stability of this particular supply chain, value chain. So we have a program which is known globally as More Crop Per Drop. This is all about saving our natural resources of water. I don't know whether anyone has a clue as to how many litres of water are required to produce one stem rose. Any views? 20 litres of water are required at the moment to produce one stem rose. We think we can get that number down to 8. So by using, if you like, intelligent sensor irrigation, we can actually manage how much the crops are watered at the right time, in the right way, and significantly reduce the water usage in that value chain. And this sort of technology is not just relevant, of course, for our roses, it's equally relevant for our citrus fruit in South Africa and also for our strawberry production in the UK. So the technology can extend across different supply chains. You might wonder why I've got a picture of a pencil. The reason that exists is because we have a program internally called our graphite program. We have invested £185 million over the last 3 to 5 years in our graphite program, which is effectively our energy saving program within our business. Paul Crew, who's sitting over there, leads the charge on this program. He tells me that as a business, and I always find this staggering, that we actually consume just below 1% of the UK's electricity consumption.
Absolutely.
So I always find that number staggering. It seems a hell of a lot to me, but there's it's one of a big cost in our business. 1% of the UK's electricity consumption, and we've had this program in place over the last 3 to 5 years. Consists of things like LED lighting, rainwater harvesting, solar panels, taking stores off grid, biomass boilers, ground source heat pumps, you name it, in terms of trying to save energy costs within our estate. It is by far the most capital accretive, capital returning of all of our investment programs. So we have a sort of 3 to 4 year cash payback on these programs. Every year Paul comes to me and says, can I have some more money to roll this out even quicker? It's one of our most accretive programs. So when you think about issues of sustainability, it's not just about doing the right thing, but it's also, in many cases, about getting fantastic capital returns for the investments that we make as a business. And I talked a bit about the role of our colleagues being our most important asset in thinking about sustainability. And we have very actively engaged with our colleagues to encourage them just to do small things, little things in store that save us energy. And this is not about a poster campaign or a sticker campaign. We found that historically that just simply doesn't work in engaging colleagues. It has to take active engagement, talking to our colleagues in our huddles, talking to them in the cascades. We also have an intranet now where colleagues talk to one another. But as a consequence of the work that we've done over the last 12 months, we've saved 3% off our in-store electricity bills, which I think is fantastic, just engaging with our colleagues. And of course, our colleagues then become the ambassadors for our business. They're interacting with customers every day, and they talk to our customers and they tell them the things that we are doing in our stores. So they automatically become impassioned about what we're trying to do as a business and communicate that to our customers. And of course, this is an area also where our customers care about what we do. So it becomes tremendously powerful if you can engage your colleagues in the right way within the business. Moving on quickly, I'm being given the 2-minute sign. So this is another example of one of our stores. This is actually our Leicester North store, where we've built this store on the basis of zero carbon footprint, zero waste to landfill, and also zero water consumption. Now, you might ask how you get zero water consumption. We actually built the store in a way where we only consume 85% of what a normal store would do. And then we actually worked with local schools, local colleges to help them save their own water consumption that we then use to offset against the 85% that we consume within the store. So net, it becomes zero. And I think that model of collaboration is also equally important in the way that we think about sustainability, particularly in terms of engaging with local communities about how we can work together in order to save costs for our business. And actually, that leads us on nicely to our Waste Less, Save More campaign. I should add, this is something that we thought about before Hugh Fearnley-Whittinstall raised the agenda on this point, but it's in a way it's convenient that he has done so. This is about how we want to engage with local communities, local towns, to try and work through and identify initiatives that can help save food waste across our whole value chain, not just in our stores, but also, of course, in our consumers' homes. And we've selected through a painstaking process Swadlincote as a town where we're going to trial this. We're going to invest £1 million in the next year to work with Swadlincote. That includes the council and also groups within Swadlincote to try and identify and test certain initiatives about how we can save food waste in the value chain. And then we will take those that prove productive, and we will look at how we can potentially roll those out across the UK with an investment of 10 million over the next 5 years. So again, we hope that that will deliver some very good productive programmes to help save on waste. And I would say engaging stakeholders is very important in this process. We talked a little bit about investors and obviously shareholders. I've often said, in the last 4 or 5 years as being CFO, very rarely does sustainability get discussed in investor presentations, in investor meetings. I generally do start to sense, though, that it is starting to come on the agenda. I really think that, there's been huge amounts of publicity, of course, with the summit going on in Paris. But I just think it's an awareness now that many investors are starting to talk about, and actually, equally from our side, we are starting to talk about it more with our investors too. So I really sense some momentum building in that interaction between investors, pension funds as well, and corporates getting together to work on how we can think through issues of sustainability. And in that context, actually, collaboration in this is very important. So we also collaborate with various bodies. So we work quite closely with Imperial College, for example, in thinking about how we can make sure we're up to speed with the latest technology on sustainability. We also work with Kew Gardens as well. And indeed, things like the CFO network, a great opportunity to share best practice. I hope you'll get the opportunity to see some of the work that's being done today over the last 12 months, and hopefully that will start to catalyse ideas in your own minds as to what you might maybe be able to take back and introduce into your own organisations. And of course, equally from your side, I'm sure you're doing many things already. We would love to hear about the ideas that corporates are engaging in, because again, we would love to be able to share those ideas across the broader network. So if you ever thought that sustainability wasn't an issue, often you get quite big wake-up calls. This actually is our Carlisle store. This is our Carlisle store on Sunday morning. You can just about see the orange Sainsburys fascia just above the waterline. This is quite a shock to us as a business. This is quite a challenge for our colleagues, a real challenge for our customers. This is not just about environmental issues. This is also about social issues, and so these are very real and apparent issues. This isn't a 1 in 100-year event. This is the second time this has happened in the last decade. These are very real issues for many businesses today, and ones where we need to prepare, plan in advance, think through contingency planning and how we deal with such tragic situations. The good news is the store will be open, I'm told, back in early January. So a lot of work is being done to get that store open and trading as quickly as possible. So just to summarise then, look, I think it almost goes without saying that sustainability is absolutely vitally important to all of our businesses. The way that we look about it is actually interwoven into the way that we plan within our business. It is led from the top within our business, from the PLC board and the operating board, absolutely actively engaged in our whole thinking around our sustainability plan. We have a number of performance targets and metrics which sit alongside all of our traditional performance targets on a financial basis. So it really is an important aspect of our business. And again, just to reinforce the role that finance can play, and certainly if I look at the role that finance plays within Sainsbury's, it's one of the things that I'm probably most proud of in our business, because let's face it, finance doesn't have necessarily the greatest of reputations for getting outside the areas of counting the numbers and producing the accounts. But I think the role that finance plays within Sainsbury's in not just supporting the sustainability agenda, but leading the sustainability agenda, to me is one of the things that I'm most proud of within our business. So I would encourage all of you involved in corporates to get engaged, to work together with us. We'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas. You'll have the chance, of course, to have a look at the exhibition, and hopefully that will stimulate some thoughts and that I hope you take back into your businesses and start thinking about how you as finance leaders can start to lead the sustainability charge within your own businesses. So I've probably gone massively over time. I apologise profusely. I'll shut up now, but thank you very much for attending.